All right, get steady. You've heard us say this a lot. Here are a couple examples of what get steady means in a performance environment. And interestingly enough, all the examples happen down in Oklahoma City. So the first comes from high school powerlifting nationals, which is a cool and I'm going to say in the most loving way possible, meat-headed event, high intensity, max effort lifting, team-based powerlifting. It's a really fun environment, but it's also a pressure-filled environment. People train for a long, long time, and then they go to put their hard work on display in front of a crowd of people. They're no longer at their school or home gym. They're in front of an audience of, who knows, hundreds potentially. Some of them familiar, some of them new faces. So we're down at this event, Powerlifting Nationals down in Oklahoma City. We have our sights set on a national championship, and we think we've got a shot. What we noticed was there were two types of people who missed attempts or missed lifts that they probably, just based on talent and training, should have accomplished, should have successfully been able to complete. The first was a version of psychological instability. Psychological instability. And we caught on to it by how often our athletes were looking at other athletes. And here's what I mean by that. At the beginning of a powerlifting meet, they'll often post heats. Heats, so like what group you are about to go in. If I'm in heat or flight A, let's say I'm in flight A, I'm going to use that term. If I'm in flight A, I'm the fourth person in flight A, the order of the event is based on opening attempts. And if powerlifting is an unfamiliar sport, it just means this is the first weight I'm going to try to lift. So they post the flights, and our instruction to the athletes is we will share with you, but you're welcome to go look at these posted. They're posted literally on the wall. You can go find where you are in the flight so that you know which athletes are coming before you, and you can warm up appropriately, get your mind right, and get ready to go lift. The more someone returned to that sheet, the more often someone returned to that sheet to look at where their opponents were opening their lifts, the less likely they were to positively compete. Positively compete, meaning put a steady and full version of themselves out there on the platform. So they're looking at their opponents, and then this is the other thing that happened. They would then try to find that person. Okay, so I'm fourth in my flight, and I know that Brian is third, and then they're scanning the warm-up area. Oh, maybe that's Brian, that athlete from New Mexico. Maybe that's Brian. And they're watching the warm-up attempts, and they're just outside of themselves, is what it comes down to. Too much of their attention is focused on their order, the numbers, the other lifters. Maybe they're scanning the crowd to see if their teammates or people they know have gone off to the bathroom or have returned from getting a snack, but their mind is elsewhere. Short version of that. So instead of the steadying effect of focusing on the moment, preparing to go do a single effort attempt at a maximum capacity weight, they're in 7 places at once. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't still accomplish the feat that they set out to accomplish. It just means that it's going to be harder. So that was the psychological instability. The physical is more obvious. The physical is if there was an instability, a lack of steadiness. Squat is the first event of a powerlifting meet. If there's a lack of steadiness in the lower half, maybe their knee was moving, shifting somewhat, or their hips were somewhat out of alignment, and they're not quite as physically steady as they could have or should have been. Again, it doesn't make the lift impossible. It just means it's going to be a far steeper track. It's going to be a much harder road to get to the place that they know that they can get to. So from lack of steadiness or lack of psychological or physical stability, the task becomes much harder. And what we found was the athlete was less likely in this unsteady place to successfully complete a lift. And that transitions nicely into the next story from Oklahoma City. I was down watching the Olympic trials for a bunch of different water boat sports. There was rowing, there was whitewater kayaking, all sorts of really fun events. But a friend of ours, Casey, wonderful athlete, he had been to 3 Olympic Games already. Now he's in the final day of the trials, and the way that works is You have to post the top time in the trials to then go represent the United States on an Olympic stage. So, on his last attempt of the last day of the competition, he was a fraction of a second, like zero point 0.2, behind the current leader. He had one final attempt. And I caught up with him on the banks of this whitewater rapid just to check in and said, "How you doing?" Very simply, he said, "I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. In 24 hours, I'm going to be on a flight back home to see my wife and my child. I'm doing fine." Now, a younger, more intense version of me might have said, "What's going on with this guy? Does he not realize what's at stake?" He's in his late 30s, a young man, in my opinion, but certainly moving down the back stretch of his athletic career. So, one attempt to make up zero point 0.2 seconds would determine, is this athlete going to go on to the rarefied air of 4 Olympic Games, or could this potentially be the last time he competitively races? What's going on? Well, he knew exactly what was going on. He also, because of his experience, knew that his only task in that moment was to get steady, that his physical ability was already there, plenty of training, plenty of experience. He knew that he could not control the other racers. He knew that going to the edge and staring and trying to just watching whitewater rapids move over themselves, he knew that this was not going to give him any sort of strategic advantage. He knew the course. He knew his ability. He knew that he had what it took to get this job done. So in that moment, he was just reflecting, "I'm good. There are important things in my life that are unchanging. I'm talented enough to go do this. My only job is to put the boat in the water and go." Casey did successfully win the trials and go off to represent the United States in the Paris Olympic Games. And it was just another fantastic nod to the idea that in moments of performance, it's not always heroism that is the distinguishing factor. Most people who show up are talented enough to do the job that they're supposed to do. The differentiating factor is often, can the athlete, can the person become steady? Can they regulate themselves to a place of steadiness so that they have their best opportunity to go put their talent on display?